Harper Audio presents An Accidental Sportswriter, a memoir by Robert Lipsyte. This is the author. Dedication. For Lois. My format. The ball I threw while playing in the park has not yet reached the ground. By Dylan Thomas, from Should Lanterns Shine. Introduction. Accidents happen. I lined up a summer job in 1957 as helper on a city water truck that would cruise Manhattan, filling troughs for the dwindling number of working horses in the city. I had just graduated from Columbia and was headed to Claremont College in California, which was as far from the borough of Queens as I could imagine myself. I had sent a dorm deposit. Once out there, I would fulfill my destiny as a novelist, either starving on the beach because my fiction was too avant-garde, or luxuriating by the side of my pool because I had sold out. Both scenarios involved dangerous women. I was an English major. But I needed a summer job to raise cash for the trip. When the water truck job fell through, it was canceled, I think, for lack of funding, I bought my first copy of the New York Times. I'd heard the paper had good classified ads, and quickly found one for editorial assistant at the Times itself. The personnel people at the Times were pleasant enough when I showed up at West 43rd Street that June morning, but patronizing. These jobs are extremely coveted, they said, because you assist New York Times reporters and editors. You get to share their air. It sounded as though I were applying to be a squire for King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table. One of my interviewers waved toward the invisible line of Rhodes Scholars, Fulbright Scholars, and Ph.D. candidates waiting for a job, and implied that my B.A. was a dime a dozen. But my last interviewer suggested I fill out an application anyway. Who knows? Something might come up in a few months. I almost didn't bother, since I would be going west in a few months. But I was a polite boy then, and I filled it out. I went a block south to seedy old 42nd Street and saw a cowboy double feature. I loved westerns. When I was a kid, my dad and I went to a shoot-'em-up every Tuesday night in the summertime, and the Lone Ranger has been a role model of mine since childhood. He protected weaker people by beating up bullies without becoming a bully himself. I still love westerns. In some ways, I think, sports have replaced westerns and jocks have replaced gunslingers in our national imagination, not necessarily to our advantage. After the movies, I took the subway to Rego Park. I had moved back home after graduation. My mother looked up from the stove to say, "You got a crank call, Bobby. A man said if you show up tomorrow and pass a physical, you can start work immediately at the New York Times." The physical consisted of showing up. That editorial assistant job was copy boy in the sports department. It seemed like an odd place for me, and I wondered if I could handle it. I didn't know much about sports. A fat boy growing up, I didn't even start playing sports seriously until I was in my teens. My dad was no fan. We never talked sports at home. I was at best a casual fan, enough to understand what my friends were talking about. I actually didn't become a fan until I left daily sports writing for the first time in 1971 and could watch a game without having to think about covering it. And not only had I never read the Times sports pages, I had barely read the Times at all. My parents, being public school teachers, got the New York World Telegram and Sun, which had an education page. But I needed a job. My shift was 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. My nights off were Tuesday and Wednesday. My first night on the job, I almost stopped the presses. The copy boy who broke me in was in a hurry to get out for a long dinner break at Goff's, the bar across the street, to talk sports with the printers and pressmen. What he was supposed to train me to do was simple enough. Hover near the copy desk, Actually, a dozen dirty blonde, cigarette-charred wooden desks lined up.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?